I was never one for grand gestures, always preferring silence, observation. Elena was my neighbor, my friend, the woman I secretly loved. For 10 years, I watched pain consume her, until one day the flame reignited. "I'm alive, Michael, and I want more than just to remember," she declared, and I knew my life would never be the same. This is the story of a love that blossomed at the right time. Elena's life after her husband's passing was a study in silence. It wasn't the silence of peace, of contemplation, but a dense, oppressive silence that seemed to permeate every corner of the house. As her neighbor, I felt this heavy atmosphere even from across the street. I observed her through the windows, on the rare occasions the curtains were open, and saw a solitary, almost spectral figure wandering through the rooms as if searching for something she would never find. Her routine was methodical, almost ritualistic. She woke early, made a cup of tea she rarely drank, sat in the living room armchair, and spent hours staring at the garden. A garden that, once vibrant and blooming, now withered under the weight of neglect. The rose bushes she loved so much were overgrown with weeds, and the vibrant colours had been replaced by shades of brown and grey. It was as if the garden reflected Elena's state of mind. Abandoned, forgotten, lifeless. I tried, in my own way, to break this cycle of silence and solitude. I brought fresh bread, offered to help with the garden, left kind notes in her mailbox. But she rarely responded. She thanked me with a forced smile, accepted help with a nod, but never opened up, never shared her pain. It was as if she had built an insurmountable wall around herself, protecting herself from the outside world. Her children, Rachel and Josh, did what they could, but the physical and emotional distance made everything more difficult. They called frequently, visited on weekends, tried to cheer her up, but nothing seemed to work. Elena remained trapped in the past, unable to move forward. I saw the frustration in her children's eyes, their helplessness in the face of their mother's pain, and I felt my own helplessness, unable to do more to help her. Elena's silence was not just the absence of words, but the absence of life. She didn't listen to music, didn't watch television, didn't receive visitors. Her house was like a mausoleum, a place where time had stopped, and I, as her neighbor, felt obliged to watch over her, to ensure she was well, even if she didn't want my help. It was a heavy burden, but I carried it with the hope that, one day, the silence would break and Elena would live again. I knew that grief has its time, that each person deals with pain differently. But I also knew that prolonged isolation can be dangerous, that loneliness can consume the soul, and I feared that Elena would be lost forever in this labyrinth of silence and sadness. So I continued to observe her, to care for her from a distance, to wait for the day she would finally find the strength to start anew, because deep down, I believed that life always finds a way to blossom, even in the most abandoned gardens. That day began like so many others. Cloudy sky, cold breeze, Elena's silent routine across the street. I saw her go out for her usual walk in the garden, but noticed something different in her expression. There was a determination in her eyes, a firmness in her steps I hadn't seen in years. She spent some time observing the rose bushes, as if bidding them farewell, and then went back inside. A few hours later, the doorbell rang. It was Elena. She was dressed simply but elegantly, in a coat I had never seen before. Her hair was pulled back in a bun, and her eyes shone with an unusual intensity. "Michael, can we talk?" she asked, her voice slightly trembling. I invited her in, and we sat in the living room. Silence hung in the air for a few moments, until she took a deep breath and began to speak. "I need to tear down walls, Michael, even if you're in them." The words came out as a whisper, but the impact was enormous. I looked into her eyes, trying to understand what she meant. She continued, her voice choked with emotion. "I can't live like this anymore, Michael. trapped in the past, suffocated by silence, wasting away in loneliness. I need to break free. I need to reinvent myself. I need to live again. I finally understood. Elena wasn't rejecting me, but seeking her own salvation. She needed to distance herself from everything that tied her to the past, including me, to be able to rediscover herself. It was as if she was preparing for a great journey and needed to shed all the weights that prevented her from flying. It hurt, I confess. It hurt to know that I was part of that weight, that my presence, even if silent and discreet, prevented her from moving forward. But I loved her too much for selfishness. I wanted to see her happy, even if that happiness didn't include me, so I took a deep breath and said, "I understand, Elena, and I support you. Do what you need to do." She looked at me with gratitude and tears streamed down her face. "Thank you, Michael. You don't know how much that means to me." We hugged, and in that embrace I felt the strength of her decision, the courage of someone willing to face the unknown to find their own happiness. After that day, my life changed too. Elena's silent routine across the street was replaced by a new routine, full of uncertainties and expectations. I didn't know what the future held for us, but I knew that no matter what happens, I would always be by her side, rooting for her happiness. Because deep down, true love is that. The ability to let go, to support the other in their choices, to celebrate their freedom. After that liberating conversation, Elena's life began to transform before my eyes. It wasn't a sudden change, but a gradual process, like the blossoming of a flower. The first changes were subtle: a new haircut, more colourful clothes, a more frequent smile. Then came the more significant changes: tango lessons, support group meetings, new friends. I watched her leave the house radiant, full of energy, and felt a pang of pride and admiration. It was as if she was rediscovering a side of herself that had been dormant from grief. She told me about the tango lessons, her passion for dance, the joy of moving to the rhythm of the music. She spoke of the support group meetings, the inspiring stories she heard, the strength she found in other women who had gone through similar experiences. Gradually, Elena's house filled with life. Music played again in the rooms, windows were opened to let the sun in, and the garden began to bloom once more. She invited friends for dinner, organized parties, celebrated every small achievement. It was as if she was making up for lost time, enjoying every moment as if it were her last. I was happy for her, but also a little insecure. Was there still room for me in this new life? Did she still remember the neighbor who had always been there, silently offering support? One day, she invited me to join her for a tango class. I hesitated, I confess. I was never good at dancing, and I felt a little out of place in that environment. But she insisted, and I finally gave in. It was an incredible experience. Elena taught me the basic steps, guided me across the floor, made me feel comfortable. We laughed a lot, stumbled a few times, but in the end, we managed to dance an entire tango without a mistake. In that moment, I realized that our bond remained strong, even with all the changes, and that, who knows, the future held new opportunities for us to share life, to dance together, to love without fear. After all, Elena's new beginning wasn't about excluding me from her life, but about inviting me to be part of it in a new way. And I was willing to accept the invitation, to embark on this new adventure, to discover together what the future held for us. Because deep down, true love is that, the ability to adapt to change, to reinvent oneself every day, to celebrate the other's happiness as if it were your own. Elena's transformation inevitably attracted glances and comments. In a small town like ours, everyone's life is everyone's business. And when a widow decides to break from mourning and reinvent herself, gossip spreads like wildfire. At first, it was just whispers in the streets, curious glances, and questions disguised as concern. Have you seen how different Elena is? Has she already forgotten her husband? Don't you think she's overdoing it? I heard these comments with a mixture of anger and sadness. Anger at the lack of empathy, the inability to understand another's pain. Sadness knowing that Elena also heard them, and that these judgments hurt her deeply. Her children, Rachel and Josh, were also bothered by the situation. They loved their mother, but couldn't understand her need for change. She's drifting away from us, Michael. It seems like we're not important to her anymore, Rachel would say, her eyes welling up. I tried to explain that Elena wasn't drifting away from them, but rather closer to herself, that she needed to break free from the shackles of the past to live the present fully. But it was hard to make them understand. They were stuck on the image of the suffering mother, the exemplary widow, and couldn't accept her new version. Aunt Martha, as always, was the most critical. She'd approach me on the street with her stern gaze and sharp voice and unleash a litany of judgments about Elena. She's behaving indecorously, Michael. A widow should observe her mourning, not go around dancing tango and laughing. I tried to argue, to show that Elena deserved to be happy, that grief didn't have to be eternal. But it was useless. Aunt Martha was stuck in traditions, customs, and prejudices of a bygone era. What angered me most was seeing how these judgments affected Elena. She tried to hide it, to pretend she didn't care, but I saw the sadness in her eyes, the pain in her smile. She felt guilty for living, for being happy, for defying societal expectations. I held her tight, told her she didn't need to justify herself to anyone, that her happiness was the only thing that mattered. But I knew words weren't enough. It was necessary to show, through actions, that true love is unconditional, that it doesn't care what others think, that it merely celebrates the other's happiness. And that's what I did. I stayed by Elena's side, supporting her choices, defending her from judgments, loving her unconditionally. Because, deep down, what matters isn't what others say, but what we feel in our hearts. Amidst the storm of opinions and judgments, something beautiful and unexpected began to blossom between Elena and me. It wasn't a stubborn romance, one of those that sweep you off your feet and turn life into a fairy tale. It was something more subtle, deeper, more real. It started with small gestures of affection, with knowing glances, with conversations that lasted for hours. We discovered we had a lot in common, a love for nature, a passion for reading, an admiration for music. We shared stories from the past, dreams for the future, fears and insecurities. We laughed at our imperfections, celebrated our achievements, consoled our sorrows. Gradually, friendship turned into something more, a new, intense feeling that both scared and enchanted us. We were afraid to commit, to get hurt, to relive past pains, but the attraction was inevitable, the connection too strong to ignore. We started spending more time together. We walked hand in hand through the park, had candlelit dinners in my garden, watched movies, cuddled on the sofa. We discovered that we loved the silence, each other's company, the feeling of peace we found when we were together. We didn't need grand declarations of love or eternal vows. A glance, a touch, a smile was enough to express everything we felt. Our love was different from anything we had experienced before. It was a mature, conscious love built on a foundation of friendship, respect, and admiration. There were no demands, no expectations, just the desire to be together, to share life, to love unconditionally. We knew the path wouldn't be easy. We would have to face prejudice, judgment, misunderstanding, but we were willing to fight for our love, to defend our happiness. One day, Elena told me, "I never thought I'd be able to love again, Michael. But you showed me that love has no age, that it can blossom even after the storm." I hugged her tightly and replied, I also didn't expect to find love so late in life, Elena, but you proved to me that it's never too late to be happy. And in that moment, we knew our love was real. It was an unexpected gift, a divine blessing, proof that life always finds a way to surprise us, even when we think we've seen it all. One evening, Elena invited me to dinner at her house. It was a special invitation, she said, and I should dress elegantly. I was curious, but asked no questions. I arrived at the agreed time and rang the doorbell. The door opened, and Elena appeared radiant, wearing a long red dress. I was speechless. She was stunning, like a movie star. The dress accentuated her curves, enhanced her beauty, illuminated her face. It was an old dress, she explained, one she had worn to a party many years ago when she was still married to her late husband. She had kept it as a mem souvenir, a symbol of a happy time that wouldn't return. But that night, she decided to retrieve it from the closet as a way to celebrate the present, to honor the past, and to embrace the future. I want to feel alive again, Michael. I want to feel beautiful, desired, loved, she told me, her eyes shining with emotion. I hugged her tightly and whispered in her ear, "You are beautiful, Elena. You always have been, and I love you more than words can say." We had dinner by candlelight, listened to soft music, and danced closely in the living room. Elena was radiant, full of life, as if the red dress had given her new energy. She laughed, talked, told stories from the past, and made plans for the future. It was as if time had turned back and we were young again. After dinner, we went for a walk through the city. The streets were deserted and the sky was starry. We walked hand in hand, in silence, enjoying the beauty of the night. Suddenly, Elena stopped and looked into my eyes. "I want to show you something," she said, with a mysterious smile. She led me to an old bandstand in the center of the square. We went up on the stage and began to dance tango. The music echoed through the square, and we moved in perfect harmony. Elena guided me masterfully, and I followed with passion. It was as if we were one body, one soul. In that moment, the world disappeared around us. There was only us, the music, and the love that united us. When the music ended, we hugged tightly and kissed passionately. It was a kiss of love, of gratitude, of hope. A kiss that sealed our commitment, that confirmed our decision to live together, to love forever. The night of the red dress marked a turning point in our relationship. From that day on, Elena became more confident, more self-assured, more determined to live life fully. She no longer cared what others thought or what they expected of her. She had broken free from the shackles of the past and was ready to embrace the future with joy and enthusiasm. One afternoon, we were sitting on the porch, enjoying the sunset, when Elena looked into my eyes and said, "Michael, I need to tell you something." A chill ran down my spine. I feared she was going to tell me she no longer loved me, that she regretted giving me a chance. But, to my surprise, the words that came out of her mouth were completely different. "I am not a shadow, Michael. I deserve the sunlight again." In that moment, I understood everything. Elena was not only declaring her love for me, but also declaring her independence, her autonomy, her freedom. She was asserting that she was not just a widow, a sad and lonely woman, but a complete person, capable of loving, dreaming, and being happy. It was a powerful, inspiring declaration that filled me with pride and admiration. I hugged her tightly and said, "I know you're not a shadow, Elena. You are the light of my life, and I love you more than anything in this world." She smiled and kissed me passionately. It was a kiss of love, complicity, and respect. A kiss that confirmed our commitment to walk together, to face life's challenges side by side, to celebrate every moment as if it were our last. From that day on, Elena became an inspiration to everyone who knew her. She became an advocate for women's rights, a senior activist, a voice for freedom and equality. She participated in demonstrations, wrote articles, gave interviews, spoke at events. She used her story to inspire others to overcome their fears, to break free from prejudice, to fight for their dreams. And I, as always, was by her side, supporting her in everything she did. I admired her for her courage, her determination, her ability to transform pain into strength, sadness into joy, mourning into life. I knew our love was special, unique, capable of changing the world, and I felt honored to be part of this story, to have the opportunity to love such an incredible, inspiring, extraordinary woman. After so many trials, so many struggles, so many achievements, life found a new balance. Elena and I built a peaceful, serene routine, based on love, respect, and complicity. We lived together in her house, which became a refuge of peace and joy. We woke early, had coffee on the porch, tended the garden, read books, listened to music, watched movies. We received visits from friends, children, grandchildren. We celebrated birthdays, holidays, special occasions. We traveled to new places, explored different cultures, lived unforgettable adventures. But above all, we valued the simple moments, the small gestures, the knowing glances. We learned to appreciate the beauty of everyday life, to find joy in simple things, to be grateful for every day we had together. Elena continued her activism, her fight for women's rights and senior citizens. She became a reference, an inspiration to many people. She received letters, phone calls, and emails from all over the world, from people who were touched by her story, inspired by her courage, and moved by her message. And she responded to everyone with affection, attention, and the wisdom of someone who had lived a lot and learned to value every moment. I accompanied her on her travels, at her events, in her demonstrations. I was proud to see her shine, to see her transform the world with her voice, her presence, her love. And, at the same time, I was grateful for the opportunity to share life with such a special, extraordinary, inspiring woman. Our love became an example, proof that it's never too late to be happy, that a new beginning is possible, that life always finds a way to surprise us. And so, amidst a chaotic and uncertain world, we found our peace. A peace that didn't depend on material possessions, nor public recognition, nor social approval. A peace that came from within, that emanated from our hearts, that manifested in every gesture, every word, every look. A peace that united us, that strengthened us, that allowed us to face life's challenges with serenity and confidence. Because in the end, what matters is not what we have, but who we love. And we loved each other unconditionally forever. If you enjoyed this story and want to follow more inspiring content like this, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to not miss any updates.